What's up guys, Barbarian or Bust here, and today we have Flay Rend Rupture Barb version 2.0. We're going to go into the pit and try it. Tier 100. Ah, snakes. They are the worst. Alright, here we go. That's why the stun duration with the steel grass stuns is so important. Can stun everything and then hopefully nothing will get you. Okay, so our first version of this made it to tier 90. And this version, as you see, can do higher than that. And we have no uniques. I just like those. I just like those guys to detonate. Yeah, let them all go. Then when they're all gone, we gather all these guys up. So again, no uniques, just tempering. I did decide to make a rogue and use their tempers, and that definitely made a huge difference. So I would advise anyone, if you want to push higher pit for bleed, definitely make a rogue. My rogue is level 52. And I just made him until I got the rare versions of the two ones we needed, which were Cutthroat and Marksman. Why is my steel grass not grabbing them? There we go.
I need time to do it.
That is still so satisfying. So yeah, the higher you want to go, the more you're going to need Flay. And you're just going to need to Flay more and more often. I hate these shamans. Okay, we gotta get out of this room with this fire guy. He's going to kill us. Oh, the fire. We want to kill everyone besides that one. Kill that one last. There we go. Now we're good. And then we'll kill the rest of these guys. Alright, they're dead. Those lunatics are literally so annoying. Man, these are just annoying mob types. There we go. So yeah, you want to have two ways to be unstoppable. Because you see, it's definitely needed. So whether you want to use Rallying Cry and Iron Warrior, or if you want to use Wrath Berserker like I do, either way, you do need two ways. See, look how easy this is now compared to the last mob types we just had. It's crazy. The difference. Yeah, I like to use Wrath of the Berserker because it also knocks them back. And sometimes you kind of need that to get away. I don't have Ghost Walkers on, so we do need that knockback effect from time to time. This now seems almost like a cakewalk compared to the first part of this. I find that kind of funny. You think the mob type should be like a little more balanced?
I need time to do that.
Oh, dead end. Okay, keep going. So most of the time, you can just finish all of them with a Rupture, but I still like to use Rend. I still find it really helpful. And we are using a polearm instead of a sword. Now this actually happened because when I was in Helltide, I found a sweet one with 2 greater affixes, and I was like, I can't not use this. I prefer to use swords because I don't like how it has a slower attack speed. But regardless, polearms are also completely busted. I didn't look at like the Paragon board or even the weapon expertise of a polearm until I got one. Oh my gosh. You have to use a polearm. Like, you have to. The amount of damage it gives you is absolutely insane. Be prepared for polearms to get nerfed. Because I just don't see how they're going to stay like that. All the damage they get doesn't make sense to me. Okay, let's keep going. As you can see, based on the mob type, depends on how easy this is, which I think is a little unfortunate, but we are literally flying through this now. Okay. Probably need to kill like one more guy. There we go. This is kind of a crappy spot. It's alright. So if you look at my Rupture, when it's gold, that means you're going to get Wanton's Rupture. And if it's not gold, see how now it's red? We don't want to Rupture till it goes gold again. Because that's when our Wanton's Rupture is ready. So right now it's gold. See, that worked. So now we want to wait again until it's gold again. This is one thing I hate about this boss. Full health again. It's like the bleeding effects don't work when she disappears. Get the hell out of there. Get out of there. See, that's why rather the Berserker saved us. And see where there's all kinds of little minions here. This is where I like to also use... Oh gosh, get out of here. This is where I like to use Rend. Alright, let's make sure we don't get crushed. Because that will be a one-shot. See, the disappearing really sucks. Because it literally takes all our bleeds. Sea Wrath Berserker saved us there again. Okay, right, there we go. Okay, and she's dead. That fight was a pain in the butt. My gosh. Alright, that is the one boss that I find very annoying because, again, when she disappears, it takes all the bleed off and it's kind of counterproductive. We have made some changes to the build, and I gotta say, you have, if you want to push as high as possible into the pit, you're going to have to make a rogue. It has to happen. So these are my old weapons where we have damage to close on them. And I had the Rend size, I had the Rupture size with damage to close. This one damage to close, this one had Flay Duration. This is the same weapon that I've had since all of my Bleed videos. I have not found an upgrade yet, but because it has Flay Duration, I did decide to keep it. Other than that, it's a pretty decent weapon. But on our new weapons, if you notice, we have tempered vulnerable damage and we've tempered critical strike damage. See, this weapon's first off is amazing. Strength, max life, 2 greater aspects. I couldn't leave this, just couldn't leave it. But you want to have strength, max life, and either vulnerable or critical strike damage on all 4 of your weapons. And then you want to make a rogue and temper the other one that you're missing. So of course this one was critical strike, this one was vulnerable, and this one was also vulnerable damage. This does so much for your damage. It's absolutely amazing. Here's why you want to do this. Gushing Wounds gives you an increased bleed amount by 140x of your critical strike damage bonus, equal of course to your critical strike chance. Our critical strike chance is 60%, and our damage is 1,500%. So that is a massive bleed on an enemy. That's why we have critical strike damage gems in here as well. And you also want to put vulnerable damage on them as well because of this, because of hemorrhage. So right now our bonus is 65. It definitely could be higher, but your bleeding damage is increased 15x from your vulnerable damage bonus. So that means if you scale your vulnerable damage, that also scales your critical strike, because the vulnerable damage is going to scale your base bleed damage, and then your critical strike from Gushing Wounds will now be higher. If you could only pick one to scale, use critical strike chance and critical strike damage. If you're playing endgame like this and you're willing to make the rogue, what you want to do is to also get vulnerable to scale the base damage, which will increase the ceiling of your actual critical strikes. I hope that makes sense. And that will bring up your base damage more than if you were to use damage over time. That's why we don't use damage over time in this build at all anymore. So that is the very, very important change. And also we have Flay Duration on all 4 of our weapons. That is also very important. Flay Duration, as you see, literally melts the boss. Completely melts the boss. Ironically, Polearm melts the boss even faster with the 56% damage to injured enemies, plus the 15x damage increase while you are healthy, and another 10x damage increase while you're wielding a polearm. That's just crazy. I feel polearms are definitely going to be nerfed because they are just so good. They are so good. And then you use Slaying Strike, which also increases your damage versus injured. And it's just, polearms are crazy. Like, I don't know. I really do prefer the sword because it is a faster attack speed weapon, but polearm deals way more damage. We'll go over the build really quickly, but those were the major changes that you want. For the highest damage, you do need a polearm, and you will need to make a rogue to get Cutthroat and Marksman tempers so that you can temper critical strike and vulnerable damage on your gear. Very important if you want to push the pit as high as you can. And of course, it would also help if you have any uniques, but I wanted to see how far we could go with 0 uniques, and we can definitely push farther than this. So we still have the Helmet of Might, and this is rolled better now that we have cooldown reduction, and we have now tempered imposing presence. That is key to doing high pit levels. You need as much life as possible, and that is only going to be possible with imposing presence. And you are going to want to have at least 2 or 3 rolls of Steelgrass stuns as well. In the chest, we have the Hectic, so this was changed from Audacity Audacity. So we had Audacity before, still works great, but we now just Steel Grasp more often to stun absolutely everything so that we could use Hectic, which is another way to get more cooldown reduction. And in this piece, you definitely want max life. I don't have a single armor roll in my gear, but I have the total armor percentage tempered here. And here, we have changed our gloves. These were our old gloves, which were still amazing, with the strength, critical strike chance, and ranks to rend. Unfortunately, ranks to rend, because it doesn't matter at the boss as much as it does for playing the actual dungeon, Rend kind of falls off. For bossing, you definitely want Flay all the time. You only use Rend on the boss if they have any minions, which is very rare, but you still use it. So the ranks to Rend, we actually dropped, and I'm really sad that Rend isn't stronger and that literally a basic skill is doing the most damage. I really think that's backwards, and I hope that gets fixed. And I hope it gets fixed not by nerfing the moon aspect like this one here, Moonrise, but I hope it gets fixed by bringing up the core skills, by giving them a damage buff in some way. So our new gloves rolled amazing attack speed, and fortunately or unfortunately, this rolled attack speed twice. You at least want one of your greater rolls to actually roll on critical strike chance. I'm kind of hoping the last one does, and if it doesn't, then I probably will reset this. If all three roll on attack speed, that would be hilarious and also disappointing. But these gloves are perfect with attack speed, critical strike chance, critical strike damage, and vulnerable damage. And again, we had to temper with a rogue. And I decided to do a lucky hit chance for a chance to stun. I do have, most of my pieces have Steel Grasp on them. And so I thought I want another way to stun something. So I went with this lucky hit chance. And in here we are using the Edge Masters. Next is the Undying, so these are the same from our old pants, but they are actually new pants. Our old ones had a greater aspect on life, but we weren't able to roll Imposing Presence because they were already maxed tempered. So we got new ones, and we got a second roll to Imposing Presence and another roll to Steel Grasp. And the big thing you want on your pants are max life, and also ranks to Flay will just make this even stronger. And down here, we still use Weapons Master. I feel this is very important because we are Steel Grasping and we are rupturing all the time. It is very important to have as many ranks as this as possible. These boots, you don't need Fury per second anymore. We are still rending quite often, but I feel that's not as important anymore. So because of that, you would want to take that out and put in a max life roll. And here I would still use the temper for the movement speed, but I would also use the temper for Steel Grasp. I just ran out of tempers and I got stuck with Stun Duration. This is my old mace from pretty much the beginning of my bleed videos. And this is perfectly rolled except for the damage roll. I want that damage roll to be vulnerable damage, and we have 0 tempers left, so I am stuck with this until I find one that is better. But this is pretty hard to beat. Like, it's rolled pretty, the strength is amazing, the max life is pretty high, the critical strike damage is at max. This is a good weapon, and you definitely want Moon Rising on your two-hander. And on your one-hander here, we have Intercom, and again, with all your weapons, you want strength, max life, critical strike damage, vulnerable damage, and Flay Duration. And this one is the Rapid. I put Wanton back on the two-hander because it just seems to work better with the boss. The Wanton Rupture, as you saw, absolutely amazing. And you can always tell when it's ready is that there'll be a gold outline on your Rupture. If it's red, then it's not ready. If it's gold, then your Rupture will be a Wanton Rupture. Very important. Again, this sword's pretty good. Try to get greater aspects as much as possible, but with this one, I couldn't pass that up either. With the polearm, it's actually deceptively more powerful than the sword. And these two rings are the same rings that we've had from before. They still have some tempering left on them, but I decided not to re-roll the resource generation because there wasn't too much in that category that I could have used. I mean, we could have used the Steel Grasp or Rupture cooldown or the Weapon Mastery cooldown, but because I also use these in other builds and because we also do still use Rend, resource generation is still great on both of these rings, and the tempering of damage to berserking is also good as well. And for both your rings, we have strength, attack speed, and critical strike chance. You could take that strength out and put one have critical strike damage, and you could have the other one to have vulnerable damage. and we use the band of adaptability. This also makes your basic skill do a lot more damage, which is why Flay is literally slaying the whole dungeon and the boss is just melting. And here we use the accelerating. Because we have such a high critical strike chance every time we use Rend, we pretty much get that 25% attack bonus. If you don't want to use this, you could use Carnage in the Paragon board, but I don't use Carnage for this build. And up here, we still have the Necklace of the Iron Warrior. If you want more damage, you could swap this out for, you could swap these places right here of the Iron Warrior and the adaptability. But I think the 50% damage reduction is more important than the 120x damage. And so this is pretty close to perfect with the attack speed, critical strike chance, and cut to the bone. Cut to the bone is great, or you could also do ranks to heavy-handed. Other than that, this is great. I do like to have 2 pieces with movement speed, and I just use them as a temper, one here and one there. And the Rupture cooldown, if I could, I would actually like to re-roll this, and I would re-roll a temper for either vulnerable damage or critical strike damage. Our weapon expertise is still two-handed axe. The skill tree has changed mildly. We still take all 7 points into Flay, into Battle Flay. We take 7 points into Rend for Violent Rend. We take 3 points into Endless Fury. If you are not going to use Rend in this build, you could take these 3 points out, put them into Quick Impulses, put them into Aggressive Resistance. Then we take 3 points of Imposing Presence, 3 points into Martial Vigor, 3 points into Iron Skin. You could also take out the Endless Fury and put them into Iron Skin to give yourself a little bit more damage reduction. 3 points into Swiftness, 3 points into Pit Fighter, 3 points into Slaying Strike. Then we take 6 points into Warrior's Rupture, 1 point to Hamstring to get 3 points of Cut to the Bone, 6 points into Steel Grasp to take Fighter Steel Grasp, 3 points into Heavy Handed, 3 points into Wrath of the Berserker, and of course Gushing Wounds. And with the Paragon board, there has been some changes. So the first board, it's still Weapon Master, but we path on both sides. So because we really want that max life. We want as much life as possible. And then our second board is Territorial, and that's the Hemorrhage board. The third board has changed, where we take Executioner into the Decimator board, and I decided to use Executioner because wielding a polearm deals 10x increased damage. That's, how can you not decide to take that? That is literally too good. That is way better than Disembowel, which gives us just an additive bonus of damage over time, and it does give us a 10% chance to have our skills cool down. That is really good, and that would be the only reason to keep that in, but this deals so much more damage that it's better that you get cooldown through your amulet or your helmet and put in this glyph. And then you would path up here for Exploit with Warbringer, and you want to max out your points for this board. Then our fifth board is Bonebreaker, which we take Wrath, and you want to max out your points in this board as well. And then from here, you path down here to get Hemorrhage. And our final board is Blood Rage, which we take Might. And again, if you want to increase your Blood Rage, then you want to put 1 more damage with Berserking Roll on one of your weapons, or you could put it on your gloves. And a couple uniques that may or may not work. The Fields of Crimson, in my opinion, is too much of a nerf to the build. As you see here, we have Strength, Max Life, Vulnerable Damage, and Crit Strike damage. In order to use the Field of Crimson, we are giving up a huge amount of Strength, a huge amount of life, huge amount of vulnerable damage, and we can't temper Flay Duration. So that 30x increase is really nothing. It's really nothing. Like our life, 55. And what does our Flay do at the moment? 62. So we gain 12,000 life. We do 20,000 more sheet damage, but we do more than that. But that's a massive decrease. Ring of the Ravenous. I tried this because I love Rend, and I wanted to see if I could bump the Rend damage up. This definitely will bump Rend's damage up if we put it on. Well, first, 180. Now, almost 300. That's amazing. but we lose attack speed, and we also lose a tempering spot, but we also lose an aspect. So we have to take out an aspect somewhere. And the aspect you don't want to lose is adaptability, but you also don't want to lose accelerating. So if you want to use Ring of the Ravenous, you'd want to put accelerating on your gloves and maybe get rid of Edge Masters to work in Ring of the Ravenous. And then the Paingorgers. I really like these, but the critical strike chance is the absolute worst. If this had, I've tried to get these so many times. If I had a better critical strike chance, I would use these. But because I don't, I feel like these don't work very well. Again, you also lose your tempering, so you're going to lose some critical strike damage, and you're going to lose some vulnerable damage. You still keep your attack speed, you still keep critical strike damage if they roll high, so this would be decent for this build if these rolled better. Alright guys, and that is Flay Rend Rupture version 2.0. 0 uniques, anyone can try this build, and for the highest damage output, put Flay Duration on all your weapons. But if you're going to use this mainly in Helltide to like farm Blood Maiden, I would suggest using one with Rend size and one with Rupture size, as it just makes the gameplay a little easier and it makes it a little more fun. It looks great on the screen, where with all the Flay Duration is pretty much for the pit bossing. I feel that if you just have 2 with Flay Duration and 1 with Rend Rupture, for everything outside the pit, it works really well. Inside the pit, this is the only way to go. So give the build a try, and if you want to push higher, you will need to make the rogue, but it'll be well worth it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.